And I use cleanses and fasting in a normal schedule to help me along the way. For those times when I slip and I indulge a little bit in this, indulge a little bit of that, you sort of have to cleanse in order to promote sound physiology. So anyways, juice fasting is probably the soundest, the most comprehensive way to help. Not only will it treat a particular condition that you may be looking at that you want to address, like a digestive disorder, a skin disorder, whatever it is, it treats the entire body, which is why it is so valuable. So one of the first things that you do by fasting is cleansing process. You cleanse, remove slurry or buildup of material in the body that has accumulated over time, either from environmental or from what we take in, whatever we ingest. Also metabolic, things that are metabolized in our body. Also biological toxins that accumulate in the body from pathogens that we take in, their byproducts of metabolysis, as well as when they die off, etc. So our body is constantly going through a detoxification or a cleansing process, right? So and that's called a catabolic, and we also break down the cells, we recycle the components of it, and then we rebuild constantly. Nighttime is when we do the breakdown process, which is called catabolysis, and during the day it's anabolysis. So when you go to bed at night, your body is very busy, going around, looking at what it no longer needs, what is redundant, it breaks it down, or whatever is not functioning properly, breaks it down to its components. Most of it is sent to the liver. The liver processes it, breaks it down further into individual components. Whatever it can reuse, recycle, it redistributes. Whatever it can't, it eliminates. When you fast, you bring on that process, and we'll talk more on how that works. And then, when you do juice fasting, which is what we're suggesting, you also benefit by the rebuilding process, the nutrients in the juice. We'll also talk about that. Here, what are we removing? We're removing slurry. In Ayurveda, they call ama, amavisha, daravisha, which is the accumulation of these toxins, causes one to get disease, to build up with pain and digestive problems, etc. In Chinese medicine, we talk about it in terms of dampness. Anything that our digestive system cannot process properly, they call dampness, or heat, which is more sort of infection, toxins, and also phlegm. So you'll hear me sort of going back to these items as we go along. So when we talk about the circulatory system, this is a microcirculatory system. We're talking about materials. It's not visible to the naked eye, of course. This is sort of what happens in the process, is that as blood, which circulates nutrients, as well as oxygen, in the arteries, and it gets diffused through the arteriole, through the capillary, the small micronutrients. And if the arteries, if the vessels are clear, then this process is easy to happen. But this ama, this dampness and phlegm, accumulates inside the vessels. In Western medicine, we talk about atroplas, atherosclerosis, etc. This is when these vessels start getting a coating of these ama or phlegm or whatever you want to call it. And this slows down. So when you're cleansing, you're fasting, part of what you're doing is clearing the vessels. And it's very, very critical. So why fast? Well, often people will fast to lose weight, right? To cleanse and detoxify, to look good, beautiful skin and hair. And that's always a consequence of fasting. The skin clears as your body clears, the inside clears, the skin also clears, and color returns, etc. To feel good psycho-emotionally, to feel good psycho-emotionally, it's amazing what happens when the body begins to cleanse and detoxify. What happens to the nervous system? It also cleanses and clears up. So the neural pathways work a lot easier, and somehow you become sort of an observer of what goes on in the world. There's less attachment to the ego. You understand what I'm saying? The sort of persona. And it's a fascinating process that happens. So when you give the digestive system a chance to rest and relax, it's pretty amazing what it can do, right? These essentially are all inflammatory diseases. So this is why this is at the top. Most disease is inflammatory, but it's always there. Whether you look at cancer, cardiovascular disease, or these digestive disorders, etc., asthma, allergies, etc. Those are all inflammation. They're inflammation in the bronchioles, they're inflammation in the alveoli, causing the body to respond, cause a reaction. So you clear that stuff up, that stuff responds. So the benefits of fasting: strong immunity, increased energy, longevity, live longer, calmness, so on and so forth, and lowered or no medical bills. Wow. No more of that, right? So I have not been to a doctor in about 35 years, and I don't take any kind of medication. I haven't touched medication, etc. in as long. I'm 75 years old. I still look like I'm 42. People who are depressed, they get some relief. They can actually clear up entirely. Teeth and gum health improve. Increases insulin sensitivity, resulting in better glucose metabolism. So the incidence of diabetes is on an increase, right? In 1985, there were less than 2% Americans that had diabetes. Now there are over 7% Americans that have diabetes. Diagnosed diabetes. People over the age of 75, 60% of people get diabetes. So it's fascinating. So why a juice fast versus a water fast? Well, primarily, there are two basic reasons. But the first reason is that juice fasting allows you to live a relatively normal life, right? So you can come back, you keep coming to work, doing your activities. If you're a parent, you can continue to be with your children, etc. Although at a reduced level of activity. So expect that to be the case. But on top of that is also what are the benefits of juice. So we talked when we started about catabolysis and anabolysis. Catabolysis is the breakdown of redundant tissue, redundant material in the body, and how the body will separate what it needs, what it doesn't need, eliminate what it doesn't need, keep what it needs, and recycle it. And then and part of that recycling, it also combined with new nutrients and building tissue, metabolic functions, enzymes, etc. So that when you're in that process, you've got the nutrients from the juice to do that. And this is what is in raw live juice: antioxidants, antipathogenic substances. So there's antifungal, antibacterial substances in the raw live juice, which will help to neutralize them. That's why digestive systems correct themselves so quickly. It also, do people know what probiotics are? So we live with hundreds of billions of organisms that live inside of us all the time. They compete for territory. So these organisms compete for, especially in the digestive tract, they compete for territory, but in our circulatory system, in our organs, etc. And there are some organisms that are symbiotic, which means that they can live with us and are not damaging. In fact, they are complementary to us. That's what we call probiota. Biota means small organisms. Then there's antibiota, which is antibiotics, right, which you take, which will be prescribed if people get sick with certain things. These antibiotics, and they kill organisms. Unfortunately, antibiotics kill all kinds of organisms, both the beneficial ones as well as the pathogenic ones. So when you take antibiotics, you should balance that with probiotics simultaneously. So it has antipathogenic, but it also has nutrients that are beneficial for probiota. So your flora, your internal flora, benefits from the juice as well. It has live enzymes, it has minerals, electrolytes. One of the biggest concern about people who fast is what are, sorry, we put it way too close, these two buttons. What will people do about electrolyte levels, right? Because that's the scariest part. When you do a water fast, you have to be constantly monitored to make sure that your electrolyte levels remain. And with juice, you're flooded with electrolytes, so there's no problem at all. But then you can have, if you don't have electrolytes, in a serious case, you know, start having kidney failure, renal failure, etc. So that's what happens. But there are usually signs that will tell you before. The produce, vegetables, fruits, etc., have this water inside them where these nutrients are suspended in this fluid, organic water, which was designed by the plant to cross in and out of its circulatory system as well as its cellular membrane, right? And that's where you usually want to go. You want to go right into the cell to detox the cell. So this water, which was designed by the plant, is in the juice. So you benefit from that. There's strong hydration, and there's a lot of transport going in and out of the cell. Of course, there's also oxygen. There are phytonutrients and chemicals inside the juice. They allow for chelation, methylation, etc. That's a whole science. Chelation basically is a process where toxins like lead, mercury, etc., that accumulates inside of our system. It's a binding process where there is a chemical produced either by the body or by a plant that binds to these toxins. The body can then identify as a toxin and eliminate it. Natural products and man-made products are constantly being debated because the body, that's why you say, eat naturally, eat natural products. The body can only identify what it has evolved with over the millions of years that we have evolved. So organic, natural materials, it can identify, it can separate what is good, what is bad, eliminate, incorporate into itself. The chemicals that have been produced over the last 50 years, the body has no history with it. It can't identify. It doesn't know what to do with it, right? So that's the critical thing. So what does it do? It's stored in the liver, stored in fat tissue, etc., until it can be chelated and eliminated. There are also plant hormones, really important. Watch this methylation. This is an amazing process that goes on in the body, and I won't go into it right now, but just as you go along, your own personal health, etc., you watch that, because that's coming out big. The plant hormone, another thing I want to talk about is the vitality, the energetic vibration, the chi. So we all have a vibration, we all vibrate, we have an energy, etc. So do plants. And plants, when you make fresh juice and you drink it fresh, you get the benefit of that vibration if you drink it immediately, if you don't wait on it. And you have all the vitamins. And the nice thing about the juice is that the nutrients are absorbed 100%, regardless of the health of your digestive system, right? Because they're suspended in a fluid, in this organic water. Almost within 5 minutes, almost everything you drink is in your system, is in your blood system. So, some important aspects that happen. How does fasting work? Well, because you decrease your caloric intake, your body requires calories, energy, to function, right? And so it goes throughout its own circulatory system, and it looks to see where it can get its energy, right? So those are fat cells, but it also will start breaking down redundant tissues, scar tissue, small little tumors, stuff like that. It begins to break it down for energy, and it clears. It breaks down the inside of the arteries, the plaque that's built up, etc., and reuses it. So that's part of autolysis. They also clear out pathogens that have accumulated, use it for energy. So you also see that white blood cell count goes up, destroys bacteria, viruses, fungus, etc. you also see a loss of weight. You lose an average 1 pound per day. The first day you may lose 2 to 3 pounds. It's mostly fluid, water that accumulates in between the skin layers. The blood thins. It's critical. As the cleansing happens, the blood thins, and then it circulates in areas that it hasn't circulated for a long time, including the organs, peripheral limbs, etc. Right? This is a big mechanism of fasting. Production and secretion of hormones increases. Growth hormone, which is a very healing hormone, increases substantially. Cholesterol deposits are released back into the circulatory system to be eliminated. Your basic metabolic rate, which is your body temperature, basically decreases. Your body temperature, your heart rate, your blood pressure decreases.